My neighbor demanded I change my outdoor Christmas decorations because they're too bright and annoying. When I refused, she unplugged them in the middle of the night and whispered, "There, now everyone can sleep." My motion sensor lights flashed as I opened my door, held up my camera footage, and said, "Then let's see what the HOA thinks about this." Living in a quiet neighborhood in Denver, Colorado, I always looked forward to the holiday season. Each year, I took pride in decorating my house with festive lights and ornaments, aiming to bring some cheer to our street. This year, I decided to go all out. I adorned the front yard with twinkling lights, set up glowing reindeer, and even placed a Santa Claus climbing down the chimney. The centerpiece was a dazzling display of multicolored lights that danced in sync with classic holiday tunes. Most of my neighbors appreciated the effort, often stopping by to compliment the setup. However, not everyone was pleased. My next-door neighbor, Mrs. Agnes, was known for her meticulous lawn and a preference for a serene environment. Our interactions had always been polite but minimal. One evening, as I was adjusting the lights, Mrs. Agnes approached me. Her expression was a mix of frustration and exhaustion. "Good evening," I greeted her with a smile. "Evening," she replied curtly. "Your decorations, they're quite bright." "Thank you. I put in a lot of effort this year," I said, beaming with pride. She sighed. "They're a bit too bright. It's hard to sleep with all that illumination seeping into my bedroom." I was taken aback. "Oh, I didn't realize it was causing a disturbance. I can try to dim them or set a timer to turn them off earlier." "I'd appreciate that," she said, her tone softening slightly. Wanting to be a good neighbor, I adjusted the timer so the lights would turn off by 10 p.m. I also repositioned some of the brighter displays away from her side of the house. I thought the issue was resolved. However, a few nights later, I noticed the lights were off earlier than scheduled. Puzzled, I checked the connections and timers, but everything seemed in order. This pattern repeated over the next few nights. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I installed a motion-activated camera facing the front yard. The following morning, I reviewed the footage. To my astonishment, there was Mrs. Agnes sneaking into my yard around midnight and unplugging the lights. She then whispered, "There, now everyone can sleep," before retreating to her house. I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. I had made adjustments to accommodate her, yet she took matters into her own hands without discussing it further. I decided it was time to address the situation directly. That evening, I knocked on her door. She opened it, looking surprised to see me. "Mrs. Agnes, I have something to show you," I said, holding up my phone with the video queued up. Her eyes widened as she watched the footage. I didn't think you'd find out," she stammered. "I adjusted the lights and their schedule to address your concerns," I began, keeping my tone calm. "But sneaking into my yard and unplugging them isn't the way to handle things." She looked down, clearly embarrassed. "I apologize. I should have spoken to you instead of taking such actions. I understand that the lights were bothering you," I replied. "But we need to find a solution that works for both of us." After a lengthy discussion, we agreed on a compromise. I would further dim the lights and ensure they were off by 9 p.m. In return, Mrs. Agnes promised to communicate any future concerns directly. The rest of the holiday season passed without incident. Our relationship improved, and we even exchanged small gifts on Christmas Day. This experience taught me the importance of open communication and understanding in maintaining harmonious neighborly relations. In the end, the festive spirit prevailed, reminding us both of the true essence of the season: peace, goodwill, and mutual respect. The new year rolled in, and everything seemed fine for a while. I kept my promise. The lights stayed dim, and by 9 p.m., everything was dark. I even started using blackout covers on the brighter ornaments just to be extra careful. But by February, strange things started happening. Small things at first. My trash bin got knocked over more than once, always on pickup nights. I assumed it was wind or maybe raccoons. Then my mail started arriving already opened. One day, I found a letter clearly sliced open, like someone had checked inside and taped it back shut. I filed a report with the post office. They didn't find anything unusual, and without direct evidence, nothing could be done. Still, I started to get the feeling someone was trying to mess with me. It got worse. I have a small shed in my backyard where I keep tools and holiday decorations. One morning, I found the lock broken. Nothing was taken, but the shelves were a mess. Someone had gone through it on purpose. That's when I knew this wasn't just bad luck. Someone wanted me to feel uneasy. I bought more security cameras and set them up around the house, front, back, even one pointed at the shed. 1 week later, I got my proof. It was her, Mrs. Agnes. In the middle of the night, in her bathrobe and gloves, opening my shed and rooting around. She even looked straight at one of the cameras. Dead in the lens. Didn't even flinch. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to march right over and confront her. But something in her face, the way she stared at that camera like she didn't care, I realized this wasn't a simple neighbor dispute anymore. This was turning into something else. So I did what I should have done the first time. I collected the footage, labeled the dates and times, and took it to the HOA. They sat me down, reviewed everything, and told me they'd investigate. They thanked me for keeping my cool and handling it the right way. I felt a small sense of relief. Until 2 days later, when I came home from work to find my entire front yard soaked. Not from rain. From a garden hose left running, pointed straight at my front door. The ground was soggy, the welcome mat was floating, and water had seeped under the door frame. I knew who did it. I didn't even need to check the cameras. But I checked them anyway. And there she was. Mrs. Agnes. At 3:16 a.m. Dragging a garden hose across the sidewalk from her side of the property, carefully setting it up to spray my entryway. Then walking away like nothing happened. This time, I didn't go to the HOA. I called the cops. When they arrived, I showed them the footage. They watched it twice. Took notes. Asked a few questions. Said they'd speak to her. I don't know what she told them, but after that visit, she didn't make eye contact with me once. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. Not even close. 3 nights later, I woke up to this weird humming sound. Like a high-pitched tone. At first, I thought it was something in the house, maybe the fridge. But it wasn't. It was coming from outside. I walked out onto the porch, and there, across the property line, was this huge industrial fan. Sitting in her yard. Aimed directly at my bedroom window. And it was on full blast. Who the hell owns an industrial fan? I shouted her name. No response. I grabbed a flashlight and walked toward the fan to unplug it. And that's when she opened her door. She was standing there, not saying a word, holding a cup of tea or coffee or whatever. Just staring at me. The fan kept roaring. I shouted again. What is this? Still nothing. So I unplugged it. She didn't move. Just stared. I went back inside, heart pounding. My hands were shaking. I felt like I was losing my grip. I started thinking, was she trying to get me to snap? To make me look like the bad guy? Was this some weird game of psychological warfare? I don't know. All I know is, after that night, I started documenting everything. Every weird noise. Every incident. Every petty act. Because I had a feeling this wasn't going to stop. And if it escalated again, I'd be ready. I'd make sure no one, not even the HOA, could ignore it anymore. Especially when the real storm hit. And oh, it was coming. A few days after the fan incident, things got quiet. Too quiet. I was tense all the time, constantly checking the cameras, waiting for something to happen. But for about a week, nothing did. No trash knocked over, no mail tampered with, no late-night sabotage. Just this heavy, eerie silence. That's when the anonymous note started. I found the first one in my mailbox, no envelope, printed from a computer in big black letters. Some people just don't belong in this neighborhood. No signature. No fingerprints. I showed it to the HOA, they shrugged. Showed it to the police, They filed it away, but said there wasn't much they could do without a direct threat. Then came the second note, taped to my front door this time. You've brought the wrong kind of attention. Leave. Again, no fingerprints. My security footage caught nothing. Whoever did it avoided the cameras. And that's when it hit me. Someone was helping her. Maybe not directly, but someone else was in on it. Or at least rooting for her. I started watching the footage from my cameras more carefully, looking not just for Agnes, but for anyone else walking by too slowly, lingering near my fence, glancing up at the camera lenses like they were measuring blind spots. It's amazing how many people act strange when you actually pay attention. A guy down the block, the one who always ran his sprinkler at weird hours, he started parking closer to my house than usual. Another neighbor I barely knew suddenly added a privacy screen along our shared fence, right where one of my cameras used to have a perfect view of the street. I didn't say anything. I just bought a better camera. Infrared. Smaller. I installed it in the birdhouse out front. That's how I caught her, again. Mrs. Agnes, standing on my lawn in the early morning darkness, with a small bottle in her hand, crouched over my bushes. I zoomed in later and paused the frame. She was pouring something. 2 days later, my bushes started dying. Brown leaves. Blackened stems. Everything curling inwards like it had been torched. But there was no fire. Just chemical rot. I took samples. Paid for a lab test. The results, herbicide, way too strong for home use. She was poisoning my yard now. This wasn't just petty anymore. This was personal. And the worst part? She smiled at me the next time we crossed paths. Not a friendly smile. Not a guilty smile. It was the kind of smile that says, "You can't touch me." I didn't smile back. I just filed everything. The notes, the videos, the photos of the dead plants, the lab report. All organized in a folder on my computer labeled evidence. Then something new happened. One Saturday morning, I got a knock on the door. Not police. Not the HOA. It was a real estate agent. She looked confused, holding a clipboard with listing info. "Hi," she said. "I'm here for the walkthrough." I blinked. Walkthrough for what? The showing. "This house is listed for sale. I have a note from the owner saying you'd allow entry." I stared at her, stunned. Someone had forged a listing with my address. I pulled out my phone, showed her my ID, told her I wasn't selling my home and hadn't contacted any agency. She apologized and left quickly. I tracked down the fake listing. It had my address, interior photos pulled from an old neighborhood blog post, and a burner email. Guess who I think submitted it? But still, no direct evidence tying her to it. I was surrounded by little things meant to push me closer to the edge. That's when I stopped reacting. I didn't respond to the fan. I didn't knock on her door about the bushes. I didn't even call the cops about the fake listing. Instead, I waited. And I planned. Because if she wanted a war of nerves, she'd picked the wrong neighbor. And if she thought a few dead shrubs and sneaky moves in the night were enough to break me, she had no idea what I was about to do next. I stopped fighting back the usual way. I started watching, collecting, waiting. Instead of calling the HOA or police each time, I saved it all: videos, screenshots, timestamps, voice memos. I talked less, smiled more. That's what got to her, I think. The silence. She didn't know what I was planning, and people like her? They hate not being in control. I hired a lawyer. Quietly. I also hired a professional private investigator. Just one visit, one contract, and a retainer fee later, I had someone with real skill keeping tabs. Because I wanted to know not just what she was doing to me, but what else she was hiding. And boy, did he find something. Turns out, Mrs. Agnes had been quietly renting out a section of her house. Against HOA rules. No paperwork, no permits, cash only. Her tenant? A cousin's kid with a record for petty theft and vandalism. Guess who was probably helping her plant notes on my door and rig my hose? Even better, my investigator found records of a dispute she'd had years back with another neighbor. Same pattern. Noise complaints, reports to the HOA, escalating behavior. That neighbor eventually moved. Agnes knew the game. But this time, she picked the wrong player. I waited until March. Then I made my move. First, I sent a full report to the HO. Documents, photos, security footage, herbicide test results, and all the proof from the investigator. I also included an official complaint for unauthorized rental activity. I made copies. I sent one to the HO president, one to the community email chain, and one to the city's zoning department. But that wasn't it. I submitted everything to a local news outlet too. They ran a short segment, Neighborhood Nightmare, when decorations sparked destruction. Not front-page news, but enough to draw attention. They blurred names, but people knew. She tried to talk her way out of it, of course. Claimed it was all a misunderstanding. She told the HOA I was harassing her, that I had cameras pointed into her windows. She even accused me of fabricating the evidence. Didn't work. The city fined her for the illegal rental. The HOA hit her with multiple violations. Her tenant, the cousin's kid, got arrested a week later for slashing someone's tires. Not mine, someone else's. Just bad timing for him. And the best part? The HOA issued a restraining order. She was banned from coming within 25 feet of my property line. Any future violations and she'd be sued by the association and possibly evicted. But the story doesn't end there. Because here's where I made a mistake. I got cocky. After all the chaos, the drama, the victory, I celebrated. Just a little too loudly. Lights back on full blast. Music on weekends. I wasn't being cruel, just enjoying myself. But that's when I learned something ugly about revenge. It doesn't always end where you want it to. One night, about a month after everything went public, I came home to find red spray paint across my garage door. Just one word. Scum. No cameras caught it. It was fast, quiet, done in seconds. Could have been anyone. Even if it was her, she was careful this time. I cleaned it up. Told myself it was over. Told myself I'd won. Then my dog, my sweet old lab, Bruno, started getting sick. Fast. Vomiting, lethargy, the works. I rushed him to the vet. They said he'd ingested something toxic. Rat poison. He survived, thank God. But I knew it wasn't an accident. I'll never be able to prove it. No footage, no fingerprints. Nothing I can take to the police. But I know. So now I keep my lights low. I stay polite. I document everything. And I don't celebrate. Because revenge feels good until you realize the war doesn't end with one big explosion. It ends when everyone's burned out. When you can't sleep because you're always watching, always listening, always waiting for what's next. So yeah, I got her. But she got me too. Maybe that's the truth about revenge no one tells you. Nobody wins. Not really.